Everybody, what's going on? So today in this video, we're going to talk about some different baits that people don't normally throw. These are baits that I figured why not make a video about them, because it can help you guys catch a lot of fish. And I've observed this and had this happen to me many of times before, and I thought why not go ahead and make a video on it. So as most of the southern and mid-eastern states are having a ton of rain, we are no exception. We have had a ton of rain. The pond is about a foot over what it was the last time I was out there. It is seriously muddy. You can probably only see down about 2 inches, if that. And it's just not very good. It's windy. It's really windy. And I'm guessing this is from like Hurricane, what is it called? George or Gordon or something like that. One of those two. Starts with a G. That's all I know. But there's some hurricane down in Florida, and we're getting some rain and crap. Of course, as you guys seen on my Facebook, if you follow me there, if you don't, go and check me out on Facebook. Michael Gerald with the same profile picture that I have on YouTube. And as you guys seen, if you're friends with me on there, I posted the weather for my area, and it literally is only rain on Saturday and Sunday. The rest of the week, all sun. Very little bit of clouds, but the rest of it is sun. So yeah, that's about what I'm dealing with. So, figured why not come in here and make a video. So this is something that I've actually observed and had happen to me before. I've actually used this to my advantage before, and I've caught a lot of fish, and I've caught some pretty big ones as well. So, let's go ahead and get into this. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the one thing that I've observed the most of. And that is when you go to a new lake or a lake that your buddy fishes or whatever, and they tell you that they throw a lot of stick baits or like swimming Senkos type baits, stuff like that, a lot of crawls and smaller worms, 5 to 6 inch worms, stuff like that. You go there, you throw it, maybe you don't catch as many, or maybe you're looking for a bigger fish, or maybe you're trying to target a different group of fish than they're targeting. You can always go to an 8-inch or a 10-inch worm. This here is an 8-inch slammer worm made by me here at Doc's Lure Company. This worm, tell you a quick story. Here's another one right here, both in green pumpkin. But real quick story. My cousin and my uncle both fish this pond. And back when I first created these worms, they were fishing the pond quite a bit. Sorry, I just kicked the table. But they were telling me about like swimming stick baits and ribbon tail worms were really good at this pond. That's what they fish all the time. Minnows and chatterbaits, stuff like that. So I decided I was going to target a different size and different type of fish than they were targeting, a different group. And so I started throwing this. And I've caught more fish out of that pond with this than I have any other bait in that pond. And my pond, you guys know, I've caught a ton of fish on this out of my pond. And it just is a bait that kills it in ponds. And one of my favorite things to do, especially if I go to a new lake where I don't really know, what people throw or how the fish are maintained, what they eat a lot of. Most of the time what I'll do is I'll go to a green pumpkin or a black with a bunch of different types of flake. I'll go with either green pumpkin magic or black blue silver, and I'll just chuck that 8-inch worm out there on a heavy Texas rig or shaky head, and just chuck it way out there in the middle and just slow move it on the bottom. And most of the time, I've caught fish doing that. One time, I went out to a lake, never been to this lake, I didn't even know this lake existed, to be honest. Went out there, made a bunch of casts with like topwater baits. I was actually using this one, but I'll talk about that one here in a little bit. I threw a bunch of different baits and just was not getting any bites, so I started throwing an 8-inch worm, just like this one here, a 8-inch slammer worm, and threw it out there. This was back when I first created these baits. Back when first week I had them. I went fishing, made a cast way out there. Of course, I didn't have my camera on because I didn't really know how this lake was, and was slowly moving along the bottom and caught 2 fish. Actually, I caught one and I lost one right at the bank. But that kind of told me. Now, we've never been back to that place because they were 2 small fish and they weren't really worth going back for, to be honest. So we just never went back. But the 8-inch worm was the only thing I could get bit on. So if you have a lake, or if you have a lake that a lot of people throw stick baits and little craws and stuff like that, go and throw a bigger worm, and you can give them fish a different presentation that they've probably never seen before, and you can catch them doing that. So go ahead and get into something else. So earlier this year, you guys have seen the video, probably, I think it was 3 months ago, I think it was, where there was we were fishing a pond, and me and my cousin and my uncle were all there, and they had been just destroying the fish on a white stick, swimming stick bait. And they were also fishing white flukes as well, and they were just destroying the fish on them. So I was sitting there, and I didn't really have any white stick baits or anything like that, so I threw something sort of like this, a neutral colored soft plastic jerkbait. What I mean by neutral is it imitates shad and bluegill at the same time. This color here is a light green pumpkin. This is actually just a color that I created for no reason. I just had the plastic made up and I made it. This is not for sale, but another color that works really good for this is the root beer color. I actually have one in my tackle box. I just grabbed the wrong one. So I grabbed a little neutral colored soft plastic jerkbait, just like this one, and chucked it out there on a double fluke rig, and was sitting there twitching it back to me, and boom, caught one. And I ended up catching like 5 fish that day. One of them was a pretty nice one. I think it was like 4 pounds, almost even. So it was a pretty good one. And they were all on a neutral colored bait. Now, the week prior, up to this point, they had been just catching the crap out of them on pure white, sort of like this color here, just pure white or white with silver flake. And that's what they were catching them on. So I opted to go with a natural colored bait, and it actually worked out. I'm pretty sure, now it's been a while so I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure I caught more fish than they did because I was using a neutral colored bait. Could be wrong, I don't really remember, to be honest. Another thing that I did, this was actually to help me catch not only my first, but also my second fish of the year, doing this technique. So they had been telling me up to this point, before I even went, this was like the first time I think I ever went to this place, they had been telling me how they always kill it on chatterbaits, normal just Z-Man chatterbaits. So I get to the pond and I'm thinking, okay, well I have chatterbaits, but I want to try a swim jig, just like this one here. So I had a green pumpkin swim bait on the back of a bluegill colored one, and I had a white colored swim bait on the back of a white swim jig. This one here is a 6-inch swim jig. Now this is not the same swim jig, but it is the same trailer, but it's not the same jig itself. But it was a bluegill color and a shad color is what I was using, and I thought about it and I threw this and I ended up catching fish, and I was actually having fish blow up right at the bank with this. This was in March. I think it was March, and I was having fish blow up at the bank looking for this thing. And what I just decided to do, and what I was really thinking was, if they catch them on chatterbaits, something maybe a little bit more finesse, something that doesn't have as much hard thumping, a lot of vibration in the water, something that's a little bit more finesse going through the water, would probably do good. And it did. That's what I caught my first and second bass on of the year, was on a little swim jig just like this. So if you're ever out there and your buddy's killing them on a chatterbait, throw a swim jig, or maybe a football jig with a swim bait on the back. You don't always have to have a swim jig, because sometimes you can do better with just normal football jigs with just a small swim bait on the back. I've done it and I've caught a lot of fish doing it. Next, we're going to talk about crankbaits. Just like this one here. This here is a blueback herring colored square bill crankbait, Strike King 1.5. So what I'm going to do with this, because I've heard this before and I've done this before, is if your buddy or whatever has been killing it on a chartreuse colored square bill or a craw colored square bill, what I like to do is, I don't really care for throwing craw colored square bills. I just never have. The only 2 craw colored square bills I've ever had, I broke one of them off, and the other one doesn't run right because it's cheap junk. So I always go with shad colors. Now, the chartreuse square bill, I've caught quite a few fish on that this year, but one of my favorite colors is this color right here. This is a blueback herring color. I really like it because it's a dull color. It's not real bright, not real shiny color. It's a dull color, and I really like that. See how there's no spot, there's no real bright yellow line, there's no chartreuse, there's no real bright blue. It's kind of a dull gray on the back, sort of a dull white on the bottom, just a small hint of yellowish chartreuse on the side. I really like that because it is different from every other crankbait. If you go to Walmart, most of the time they're sold out of chartreuse, or not chartreuse, but a sexy shad colored square bill. Most of the time they are. I've gone to where they didn't have any, even in the sizes, they didn't have any in that color. But they always had this, and I got thinking, that color is going to catch them just the same. And trust me, it does. If you go out to your lake and your buddy says that chartreuse square bill is good, now if it's not crazy muddy water and it's kind of a clearer water, maybe a foot to 2 foot of visibility, but they've been doing good with chartreuse crankbait and you don't have a chartreuse crankbait, but you have one like this, trust me, that there will still catch the fish because it is different. They've been, your buddies have been beating the banks with a chartreuse square bill. All of a sudden, here comes this little dull colored shad just going right along on the bank, and that bass is going to destroy this thing. And you can catch bigger ones on this as well. If that bass has seen 15 casts worth of a chartreuse square bill and he doesn't bite, you go through this right in that same area, he'll probably bite this just because A, it looks more natural, 2, it is different from that bright chartreuse color, and you can catch them with this. If I remember right, this is like sexy blackback or sexy blueback herring or something like that. It's a blueback herring base color is what it is. So that there definitely works. So last, but definitely not least, is topwater baits, just like this one here. So this can go either way. This what I'm going to say can go either way. It can go the way I'm going to show you, or it can go the opposite way. So if your buddy is out at the lake and he's on schooling fish, and he says that a rattling spook, or a rattling sexy dog, or maybe a 6-inch dogma, or I'm trying to think of other river to sea, what's that bait called? The Reaction Innovations Vixen. I'm trying to think of the river to sea one, but I can't. I'll probably remember after I turn the camera off. But if he says that a rattling walking bait has been just killing it, go and check out throwing a silent. Hold the hooks, no sound, nothing. It is dead silent. I really like that. I like silent topwaters, especially if you know that the people around you have been throwing loud one-knocker spooks or a rattling with little BBs inside of it. And if you see that, throw something like this. So I'll tell you a quick story. I've told this story before, but I'll go ahead and tell it again. I've actually got a video. If I can remember, I'll link it down below. It is probably one of the better videos I've made, but the camera was messed up, so it filmed vertically. I know a lot of people hate that, but my camera malfunctioned and did that anyway. But I ended up catching, I think, 6 fish in that video, all on topwater. And something I noticed was the first 2 fish were on a sexy dog, which they have rattles in them. That was the first fish. 2 fish I caught on that were both on video. So then, after I did that, they just wouldn't bite again. So I switched over to a one-knocker spook. Boom, boom, caught 2 fish that quick. Then they wouldn't bite it again. And then I switched over to this exact same one, and boom, boom, caught 2 more just like that. I don't know why, but just that difference in sound was the key. They were all 3 with white bellies. They all 3 basically looked the same, just a little bit different design, a little bit different length pattern and stuff, but they just sound. The main thing that them fish were keying on was the sound. Suddenly, you go from throwing a big rattling bait to a one-knocker. It's a little bit different sound. They think, okay, maybe that one-knocker spook is not here anymore. Boom, they hit it, they get caught. Then they're like, okay, we know to stay away from that sound. Then you throw a silent, boom, they bite it again because they just think it's a different sound. Now this can go the other way as well. If you're on a lake where your buddy says that a silent bait has been catching a lot of fish, go with a rattling bait or go with a one-knocker bait. I think, in my opinion, one of the best sort of a neutral between the 2 baits is a one-knocker because it is very quiet sound, but you can still hear it. I really like that as well. Same thing for frogs. Frogs, you can do the same thing. If your buddy is throwing a BB inside of a frog and he's catching fish, go with a silent frog. sometimes that just works a little bit better. But yeah, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Super excited for the fall time. I'm hoping that this fishing fall season is going to be really good. Can't wait for deer season. We're under a month away from deer season. I'm super excited about that. So, once again, thanks for watching. Bye.